Someone asked in that Q&A what my favorite thing about you is, and I talked about how you furiously double-click all your text when you're reading on screen.
My severe OCD tendencies are great.
I'm not saying it's severe, but I am saying it's wildly extreme. But, like, you know what?
I'm not saying severe, but I'm not saying my psychiatrist didn't call it moderate to severe.
I will say it is one of my favorite things about you. It's a very precious little, no one's perfect.
I've tried to explain it. I tried to explain it to my old therapist. She's like, oh no, it's probably just a nervous tick. And I was like, yeah, that's what I thought at first, but it's become such a compulsion that I like can't function. And like, I can't let people watch me on the computer because people are like when I'm doing something and I'm trying to show Blaze something, he's like, if you highlight it every 4, like, if you continuously highlight the sentence, I can't read it. And I'm like, but I can't read it if it's not moving. Anyway.
It's very charming. It's like, oh, she's not perfect.
Oh, she's
finally.
so troubled.
Oh, she's broken.
She's
just like us.
Busted up. It's okay. Oh, well, welcome to And That's Why We Drink, where I'm a little busted.
Can we leave all of that in?
I don't think I realized that since now that I told Em, like, we can record now from the start because I can edit now. And so it's very exciting. But it also means, I guess, a more free-flowing, open-ended conversation is happening here.
I was just saying my favorite little tics that Christine has. So, we've all got them.
And it's like, oh, my severe OCD. Good. Glad it's glad it's serving a positive purpose, because it's certainly not in my life, but I'm glad it is in yours.
It would be weird if I didn't recognize it and love you no matter what kind of crazy tics you got going on. That's okay.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I feel like when you noticed it, that's actually the point when I went, okay, because my brother knows that I do that, and obviously, like, we've known each other long enough that he just knows that I do that, and it never really occurred to me that nobody else has really seen it. And so when we recorded together and you were like, man, one thing you do, it's like you're just like constantly, I don't know, ticking or highlighting or
well, I said it like a year after I noticed it, and I was like,
I was like,
man,
was
this
embarrassing.
Is just a personality trait now.
Yeah, and I was like, it's a fun personality trait, aka a compulsion that I can't control. And so then I went into my therapy office and I was like, listen, this has now been brought to me from someone else, and I feel like now I need to address it because it's not just me noticing it anymore. And so, yeah, she was like, no, it's probably just a nervous tic, not OCD. And I was like, well, let's get to know each other a little bit more, and then we'll discuss. And pretty soon, we had a full list on the table. It was great times.
Oh, but, good. Well, I can't wait to learn what your other tics are, even though I feel like
there's so many. A lot of them, aka checking under the bed before I go to bed every night, which is like, pretty much the bane of your fucking existence at this point.
That's fair. It is useful when I don't have like a guard dog with me on my travels, because I can be like, Christine, check under my bed, because I'm not going to do it. And you'll go.
And I'm like, oh no, remember when I dropped my pen earlier? That was me trying to find an excuse to look under your bed. I already looked under your bed. But I'll do it again. Well, anyway,
I think all of your little tics are very charming.
I appreciate that, Em. Hey. Some people think that I'm like joking about OCD. I'm like, no, I'm fully not. I'm not making that up as like a, haha, I have OCD. It's like, no, it's a very pain in my ass.
Pretty insane.
Pretty intense diagnosis, but we're fine. Listen, I've got a lot of it under control. Some of it, not all of it. Some
like
of it.
One. Maybe
I still look under the bed, so that one hasn't been dealt with. But it's
like,
okay.
Dare we ask Lemon, who you found under the bed, if you're okay mentally?
Yeah, listen, it served a good purpose for the show, okay? Lemon never would have been discovered.
You know what? We said it earlier today, but I was like, anytime we've ever like been annoyed with each other, it always became good comedy. It's so, like,
you did say that, and that was such a wise, sage remark you made earlier.
What was I saying? Oh, because you like spilled wine everywhere.
I snuck wine into somewhere where I wasn't allowed to bring wine, and Em was like actually pretty fucking mad at me. And I remember like, well, to be fair, I broke the straw of my wine bra and dumped it all over the floor. So like Em had every right to be mad at me, but I remember going, oh, I actually really ticked Em off this time. Like, Em's not happy.
But the whole time I was upset, part of me was like, you can't possibly be upset because you just like struck a great comedic story. So like
we'll never stop talking about this, right? It's sort of like that combo of like, you can't be all mad, But
yeah, it's like when my kid is going to do something like horrifically stupid one day, it's like, I can't be all mad because now I get to like make fun of you about this for the rest of my life, you know?
Now you have that ammo in your arsenal. Yeah, you have a fun story for their wedding. Yeah.
You get it.
For sure.
Anyway, how are you on And That's Why We Drink? Why do you drink?
Oh, well, I am drinking this lovely, these are my new favorite, these San Pellegrino juice beverages. Is a orange and prickly pear.
I love an orange.
Schmancy.
Oh,
yeah.
That reminded me. Fun fact. So I'm sure you and the rest of the world know that
Probably
Skittles,
not.
the candy Skittles.
Oh, are vegan. Yes. Oh.
Fun.
Oh, no. I thought that's where we were going.
No, but they made the worst decision of their PR life when they took away the lime candies and replaced it with green apple. This happened several years ago, and I have not been able to look at Skittles the same ever since.
Oh, I don't think I knew that, but I feel like I love green apple, and I don't like lime, so maybe I'm on the wrong side of history.
You're about to find out some bad news, because apparently enough people wrote in to be like, this is trash. Who the fuck made this call? And so Skittles is bringing back the lime, getting rid of the green apple, and they're like launching this like rebranding by like, if you should see it in stores. But they are coming out with lime only Skittles, which for you is disgusting, but for me is amazing. So there's only going to be...
they're not disgusting. Like, don't get me wrong, I will eat any candy that's in front of me, but not my fave.
They're like, it's like how Starbursts have like the pinks only bag. They have, like, to make up for lost time, the green lime Skittles only.
Oh, that's hysterical. So lime's getting its like comeuppance, basically.
Finally.
Wow. After getting rejected, that's pretty harsh.
I know. Went from like the underdog to the like supreme dog real quick.
Seriously. So, I don't think I knew that even happened.
It's only limited edition, so go get your lime Skittles while you can. And now, sayonara green apple. Never liked you to begin with.
Wait, I love... I don't think I ever noticed the difference clearly, or I didn't... I must have, like, but I don't eat Skittles that often.
The taste was potent enough for people to be writing in. Was it, like, not good? It was just green apple. And I was like, wow, I've tried this a million other places. I just like, they just had a good line.
I feel like the classic Skittles were like a combo that you got used to. It seems weird to switch that up. So I can get why that would be frustrating.
I feel like an intern came in and went, you know what's fun? Green apple. And then...
You know what millennials love these days? You know what Gen Z, they're icon. You know what's iconic with Gen Z these days? Oh my God.
But anyway, so you said orange, I thought citrus, and it got me to lime. So
great. Well, that was what I was drinking, is a prickly pear orange situation. It's very good. And I don't know why I drink, except my impending motherhood is coming up very quickly. We're at like 7 weeks away.
It's a lot of big words.
Or less, depending on how quickly this human decides to enter the plane of existence. I'm getting a little freaked out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Finally? I've been freaked out this whole time, my friend.
Oh, trust me. I mean, I'm never not freaked out, to be clear. I'm usually, my baseline is pretty fucking high. But I even was like, I'm speaking of OCD, I was like, to my therapist, I was like, we need to address this because it's getting worse. And she's like, does it correlate with anxiety? I was like, yes, it correlates with anxiety. That is why.
Aren't you the therapist? Wait a minute.
So I'm trying not to like freak out every 5 seconds, but you know what? We got this. It's okay.
What's the thing that's freaking you out the most?
Touring, man. I'm nervous. I'm just nervous that I'm going to be sad, or I don't know. I don't know. I'm just
sad,
nervous,
like away from the baby, or
yeah. And tired. I don't know. I'm just scared, but I think it'll be fine. And we have several months before that happens. We have like an early test run of 3 days where I think Blaze is going to travel with us. So like, it'll be fine. Everything's scary.
If you miss the baby too much when we're on tour, I can just cry and scream and keep you up all night. I promise.
There's enough of an infant with me anyway.
I'll just be like, feed me! And then I won't stop screaming until you do it. So then you're not going to miss that baby at all. You're going to be like...
I'll have a baby with me. You're right. That makes me feel better.
Yeah. But we could color. We could do all sorts of baby stuff. We could watch...
We already do that. We do color and coloring books and stuff on tour. I feel like you're right. You know what? You're prepping me exactly for where I need to be.
I know what I'm doing.
I did want to add, let's see, this week... the baby's as big as the crystal ball from Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, or as big as a fanny pack.
I like how, like, the prop master had to be able to give measurements of that crystal ball so other people
very specific
understand the reference without having held it themselves. You know.
Yes, and then actually when this comes out, it'll be as big as the volleyball from Top Gun. That's
Jesus Christ!
Weirdly specific, or the Polly Pocket Adventure playset. So.
You have to shoot out a volleyball?
Oh, don't worry. By the time
oh my word,
we get there, it'll be a cabbage. Oh my God, Em.
What?
One of them is Kermit the Frog. Coming up.
Kermit is reborn.
If the baby's born week 41, which will be Kermit the Frog.
It will be, I promise.
Does
that also fall on Mothman Festival? Because it's a little too on the nose.
We could literally plan now around the birth. Knowing that Kermit is an option, we could absolutely plan the exact date.
I would like to be in the hospital, and I would like to set up like a ritual space where it's only Kermit the Frogs all over the place, just to welcome in a new Kermit.
We'll turn off the lights and like hum. I don't know. It'll be creepy as hell.
If you don't name the baby Kermit, if it comes out like on Kermit week, like I'm gonna be so fucking mad at you. Just saying.
Well, oh my God, one of the weeks on movie and TV props, week 39 is Bruiser from Legally Blonde, which is very cute.
Precious.
Basketball from Space Jam. Pizza from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's a lot of fun stuff.
That's not a firm measurement.
I feel like, yeah, it says 19 to 22 inches. So
Jesus.
It's just big. It's just a lot of it. It's big. It's large. Anyway.
I hope the baby comes out as Bruiser from Legally Blonde. And then you just have a little chihuahua.
A chihuahua. Yeah. Named Kermit. Yeah, it's going to be a disaster for everybody.
I hope it's actually just like a fully functioning like puppet that comes out and just goes like,
I mean, I guess it sort of is.
Easy being green or something.
Oh, no, it's not that. Just a dancing Kermit.
Yikes. Anyway. Well, I don't envy you, but it's going to be... Are you worried about the day of or the 18 years after? Which one?
Well, a lot of it, you know.
They sound equally troublesome.
They're equally troubling and they're equally scary. I would just say both. All of the above.
Are you going to, like, epidural it? Like, what's the game plan?
Well, you know, it's a very touchy subject. People get very, very judgmental. So please, if you're listening,
do you not want to give the answer?
No,
then?
I'm happy to share just to make other people feel like, you know, it's safe to share things like this. But yes, I do plan to get an epidural. That's the plan. So we'll see. But obviously, there's a plan, and then there's like whatever actually ends up happening. So I don't want to get too hung up on any details. But like my plan is to get an epidural. So we'll see.
Honestly, I don't know enough about the controversy there, but I think if anyone is in enough pain, like that's a very valid option. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think there's anything wrong either way, obviously, but you know, some people get kind of judgmental about it. But
plus, you've also had like 80,000 spinal taps from that one night.
Honestly,
remember?
That one that fucked up spinal tap that like he missed into my spine. I mean, I don't think anything could have prepared me for an epidural as well as that did.
I thought you were going to say nothing could be more painful, and I was like, ooh, don't
also
count the chickens, my friend.
Yeah, no, also, yeah, true, fair point. But nothing could be really more scary because that was like, wow, I'm in the basement of this hospital. This is the 8th time he's trying to put this needle into my spine. And then afterwards, they told me, actually, it's great. It's really fascinating because he's actually legally blind. And I was like, is that a joke? And Blaze was so mad. He's like, wait, they put that doctor in charge? He is literally legally blind. And I was like, oh, I know. They told me.
Oh my gosh. Maybe he'll be the same doctor that works with you. So you'll have a legally blind and a legally blonde little bruiser. So
absolutely not. That man was also 80. So I'm like, I think he's probably retired in the last 5 years. I hope, because he really was blind. He shouldn't be putting a needle in my spine anyway, whatever. So it's fine. The professionals who do it, it'll be fine. But yeah, listen, I've been in enough pain with my Crohn's and shit in hospital. Like, I'm just gonna take the epidural. You know what I mean? It's like,
look, I have zero room to judge you, even if I knew what I was judging you on. But congratulations either way. You're about to literally push out a human being.
I hope so.
You kind of get to do whatever the fuck you want. How about that?
Listen, I'm gonna write that down and make that my affirmation. I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Look, and you know what? I would applaud it 1,000%. All right. Do you want to get into the story this week?
Please.
You're gonna like it, Christine.
I can't wait. So it is hot as heck over here, and the last thing I want to be doing when I'm hungry is cook over a hot stove, which usually ends up being the case, but not lately because I just got my new shipment of Daily Harvest in.
Oh, I'm so excited that, okay, so we actually have 2 boxes of Daily Harvest here currently, and so after we record, I'm about to get crazy on some artichoke and lemon Harvest Bowl, plus they have a chocolate ooey gooey midnight fudge scoop thing.
I mean,
every word that just spilled out of my mouth was like better than the last. Whew.
They never use preservatives, added sugar, artificial anything, and they're all about leaving the earth in a better place than they found it, not for us, but future generations to come. So Daily Harvest focuses on increasing biodiversity, investing in organic farming practices, reducing food waste, and even prioritizing recyclable and compostable packaging.
Stay cool, calm, and collected during the summer heat and go to dailyharvest.com/drink to get up to $40 off your first box.
That's dailyharvest.com/drink for up to $40 off your first box. dailyharvest.com/drink. Follow my lead, everybody. Start summer off on the right foot with comfortable bestsellers like flats, loafers, and sneakers from Rothy's. You know how much we love them. They have sandals in an array of colors, shoes made for exploring. Their newest styles have you covered. Apparently, there's a juniper color now, which I'm going to get next. I know. Somebody tagged me on Twitter. Plus, their spacious washable bags are perfect for summer getaways. And now, welcome to the table.
Welcome. My feet are clapping as while also walking over to join you because Rothy's now has a men's selection. I cannot stop looking at the RS01 shoes that are in olive and bone. I'm probably going to end up getting 2 colors because they're insane. The Rothy's newly launched men's shoes are intentionally designed with an artisanal level of detail and created with nearly zero waste. They're durable, washable, and better for the planet. Plus, they have been rigorously tested during R&D, results in a perfect fit, and you can wash after wash and enjoy them, and they'll always stay clean.
My brother also came over and was like, did you know Rothy's has men's shoes now? And I was like, yeah, Alexander, I know Rothy's has men's shoes. And he was like, I'm going to order some. And I was like, hell yeah. I feel like everyone's joining the club, so I'm very excited. Step up your summer wardrobe. Join me and Em with washable, sustainable, stylish shoes and bags from Rothy's. Head to rothys.com/drink to find your new warm weather favorites today.
That's rothys.com/drink. Okay. So this is the story. It's your favorite topic.
What?
Do you want to guess what your favorite topic is?
My favorite topic. Do you want to guess what your favorite interest is, Christine? Could it be cowboys or aliens?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
What?
No, it's aliens.
Okay. I figured it was one or the other, but I want to be a little more specific, so I said cowboys. But aliens is my guess.
I would like to combine them one day and cover like a space cowboy for you. But
a space cowboy, I would be so thrilled.
I should have made that your America's Hercene Shifter as you were a space cowboy. That would have been fun.
Maybe like the space cowboy is like my romantic interest, or the Hercene Shifter's romantic interest.
There will be a sequel to America's Hercene Shifter, and they will be falling in love with a space cowboy.
It'll be like that weird Akon story about like erotic space literature.
Well, they'll have a baby named Xenon, and then you know where it goes from there. So, okay. So this is the story of the Majestic 12, a.k.a. the Roswell Incident.
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
The big guns.
So the Majestic 12, I like the sound of Majestic 12 because you usually get like Triple Threat, you got Fantastic Four, you got the Jackson 5. You never get a dozen. Oh, Cheaper by the Dozen.
Cheaper by the dozen.
Anyway.
The most famous dozen of all. Yeah.
The cheaper one. A baker's dozen, which is actually not a dozen. Fun fact.
Which is even better than a dozen.
A baker's dozen is also what I call the M special. So
just throw one extra for fun.
So, okay, this was obviously in Roswell, New Mexico. This was in 1947, which, just to keep you in the loop, it was the beginning of the Cold War, which will come into play later. Fun fact, I just wanted to ask if you wanted to take a little guessy. In 1947, at the beginning of the Cold War, how many UFO reports do you think were seen in that year alone, 1947?
Oh my God. Like in the world?
Let's say near New Mexico.
10?
There were in the last 6 months alone, there were over 300.
What?
Yeah.
Holy cannoli.
I don't know if it was officially New Mexico or just the Pacific Northwest, but fun fact for you. So,
wait, is New Mexico in the Pacific Northwest?
West America. West United States.
I was like, I feel like it's not quite.
Yeah, it's more Washington, Oregon kind of stuff.
Mexico than like
Fair
Canada.
Yeah, Pacific Southwest, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah, the Southwest. I feel like that's like Texas, New Mexico, Arizona.
So this story, so 1947, the Air Force comes forward and publicly announces that they have found a flying disc. And it was on, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like Brazil, but with an E instead of an I. So Brazil.
With an E instead of an I.
Yeah, so Brazil. But
I don't know. Wait, what is it? Is it a place?
It's a last name.
I have no idea. I guess.
I'm saying
Brazil.
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 So the Air Force says that they found a flying disc on the Brazil ranch. And this,
I see.
in the newspaper articles, this is actually one of the first references where flying saucer is coined.
Okay.
So the account, or this actual sighting, happened June 14th, 1947. And the rancher, the farmhand, his name was W.W. Brazil, although they call him Mac. And Mac and his son Vernon were driving on their property, which was about 80 miles away from Roswell. And they saw, quote, a large area of bright wreckage made up of rubber strips, tinfoil, and rather tough paper and sticks. So
sounds like somebody's fort fell apart.
I was gonna say, it sounds like when you go out into like the woods and try to like make soup as a kid with leaves and sticks.
Like find a rock and you're like, this will work as
this
a bowl.
This is a sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So anyway, there was apparently a lot of like metallic wreckage.
Okay.
And others who also witnessed this from further away claim to say that the crash left a bunch of scraps around, confirmed by the farmer. But they also said that the scraps were taken away by high-level military, and some reports even said that aliens were found in the UFO and taken by the military. But the only real account we have is from Mac and his son Vernon. This made headlines with the Roswell Daily Record. They stated that Mac tried to collect as much of the scraps as he could. He didn't have a phone at the time, so he didn't know like how to contact anyone to help him. And so he just kind of like cleaned up.
He just went, help.
Yeah, he's like, I guess I'll store this somewhere. And after hearing about other UFO sightings in the area, Mac decided that he was going to show all these scraps to the sheriff. It got passed through a couple hands. Eventually, it ended up with the Air Force's bombardment group, which took the flying disc for inspection. Okay. And after having the disc for a day, they quickly debunked it as can you guess it?
Weather balloon.
Weather balloon.
Yay.
So this would have been part of, they're thinking based on the time frame and them calling it a weather balloon, this would have been around the time as Project Mogul, which I might cover eventually if we get really in depth.
Sounds cool.
If we ever get really in depth with aliens, or UFOs, I'll cover it. But it's basically like the classified government program where they set off a bunch of high altitude weather balloons to monitor nuclear tests from Russia, which I think I've talked about a little bit in the past.
Yeah.
I think when I covered, I forget what it was called, but it was the alien encounter where like 300 students saw it and they thought it might be a weather balloon.
Yes.
So I've mentioned it a little bit before, but it's called Project Mogul, where they released all of these things to like test radiation.
That's
and shit
right.
in the sky.
I do remember that. Yep.
Ironically, they were doing this in the earlier 1940s when Russia wouldn't even have its own like nuclear balloons or anything worth really testing until almost 1950. So Project Mogul came out before there was ever even anything to worry about.
Huh.
And then things ended up showing, it was kind of like which came first, the chicken or the egg, and like
right.
did we cause these things to even exist because we were afraid they existed? So anyway, fun fact there. Although this flying saucer was dismissed as a balloon, since they had stated in the press that it was a flying disc, that kind of just like laid the bricks for UFO paranoia.
Okay.
And the, quote, Roswell Incident stayed dismissed and unheard of globally and even nationally until the 70s. So I always thought, when I thought of the Roswell Incident, like the thing that made Roswell so fucking crazy powerful and all about aliens, I thought it was going to be like, we ran into 500 aliens coming off a UFO and they just like all had a party with it. I thought it had to be something crazy for Roswell to get this reputation.
Sure, all that credit, yeah.
And it was just like a farmer and his son saw this thing in the sky and it crashed and it got mentioned in the paper, and like a day later the story quickly changed and it was kind of odd.
What about all those 300 sightings?
Yeah.
No, like, is that not why?
The 300 sightings was like a story from like New Zealand or something.
No, sorry. You said like how many sightings were there in New Mexico in the year 1940?
Oh, right, yeah. Well, even that, so that, I think that was all in or around New Mexico, but none of them were like the Roswell
Incident. Oh, so you're saying
incident.
Roswell specifically got the credit from that incident. Well, okay, wow, yeah, I would have expected it to be like
it's like
for the conventions that happen nowadays, yeah, I would have expected it to be like Mothman size.
It's like such a mundane story compared to like probably any of those other 300 random reports around the area. Like,
yeah,
but in Roswell, New Mexico specifically, the thing that makes Roswell so all about aliens was this like random blip of a story.
Okay.
So
you never know, I guess, what's gonna stick.
I guess not. So it ends up staying, like I said, dismissed for a while until the 70s, and then it had this like resurgence. So there was this guy named Stanton Friedman, and I'm going to bring him up a little bit later too, but he talked at some point, he was a big UFO enthusiast, and he ended up talking to military members who say that they saw the crash site, and after talking to them long enough, he ended up making this documentary called UFOs Are Real. And so this documentary that came out about this Roswell incident, in combination with the fact that 2 years later, a book called The Roswell Incident came out, those two things made UFO enthusiasts look back and be like, oh, why haven't we ever really paid more attention to this case?
Okay.
So it was from 78 to 1980 when the Roswell Incident became like a thing all over again.
Right.
So back to whatever the Majestic 12 is, right? So that is a conspiracy theory surrounding the Roswell incident and kind of what gives it the notoriety. Because like I said earlier, it's like, why was this random mundane UFO report compared to others like the big one?
Yeah.
So the Majestic 12 is this conspiracy theory that this incident, even though it's like kind of boring compared to the rest, is the one that resulted in a top secret group being formed called the Majestic 12. AKA, apparently in a lot of documents, it's spelled as MJ12 or magic with a J.
That sounds even spookier.
I know. So it's kind of like if you were looking at like government files, it would say like MJ-12. That means
it sounds
Majestic 12.
Top secret scary level to me.
So this is how the Majestic 12 even became a concept. So this guy named Jamie Shandera, he was at home. This was in the early 80s, and he says that he was literally just like going about his day, and he heard an envelope fall through his mail slot and never found out who the sender was. Just heard something go through the door, went to go check, and it was a postcard from New Mexico. And it was a postcard in the envelope as well as undeveloped photo film. Sorry, I fucked up. There was no postcard. It had a New Mexico postmark. Sorry.
Postmark. I was like, that's nice. Like, wish you were here.
Thinking of you. So the envelope.
So where did he live?
He lived in, I don't know. I didn't write that down.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. I thought you had said it. So he's just some guy, and he gets.
So he's a random guy who happens to be a UFO enthusiast, which we get to in a second.
Okay.
But he just like basically he got this envelope. Inside was this undeveloped photo film, so like a roll of film. And he brought it to his other friend named Bill Moore, who was a big UFOologist, a big UFO enthusiast. So the two of them together were like, I think Bill Moore was also very like onto conspiracy theories. So when this guy like got a random roll of undeveloped film from a stranger, he was like, oh, my conspiracy theorist friend will want to hear about this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a person to call for sure.
Yeah. So he goes and sees his friend Bill, and they develop the pictures, and on the film were 8 pages. I guess they might have been like pictures of the pages or something.
Like early scans.
Early screenshots, if you will.
Screenshots.
But it was 8 pages of classified briefing papers for Operation Majestic 12.
Whoa.
So one of the pages was a note from President Truman, which was authorizing the creation of this group called MJ-12. So one whole page was just him saying, like, I acknowledge that this is a thing. It is being created, and I'm giving my seal of approval on that.
Stamped. Yeah.
Yeah. The other pages were allegedly from 1952, so it was 30 years ago. And it was a note from the CIA director briefing President Eisenhower as he was coming into his presidency, to let him know, like, hey, this is what Truman was up to. This is what M12 or MJ12 is, and we strongly suggest you continue this work under your presidency. So it was like from the CIA director to the literal president saying, like, hey, you should keep doing this.
This is your hobby now.
Yeah, you don't have a say. So other pages also described several UFO, I wouldn't say several, but a handful of UFO crashes and people involved in the investigations and potential cover-ups. So, fun fact, although several parts are redacted, making it hard to read, you can find these online on the FBI website.
Oh, hell yeah. I love when they still have those things up there.
Mm-hmm. So, this is a sample of like what one of the pages said. On June 24th, 1947, a civilian pilot... This is one of like the other random UFO crashes they talk about. On June 24th, 1947, a civilian pilot flying over the Cascade Mountains in the state of Washington observed 9 disc-shaped aircraft traveling in formation at a high rate of speed. Although this was not the first known sighting of such objects, it was the first to gain widespread attention in the public media. Hundreds of reports of sightings of similar objects followed, and many of these came from highly credible military and civilian sources. These resulted in independent efforts by several different members of the military to ascertain the nature of the purpose of these objects in the interests of national defense. A number of witnesses were interviewed, and there were several unsuccessful attempts to utilize aircraft in efforts to pursue the discs in flight, and public reaction bordered on near hysteria.
Whoa.
So just like that, but a bunch of pages like that, giving you some intel on like what the government was up to and not telling the public.
Yeah.
So the Majestic 12, it was allegedly, because we don't know if this is legit or not, it was allegedly created after an incident by President Truman to understand the physics of alien technology, to prepare for future communications with extraterrestrials, and to even have the military propose responses for future encounters and like how they should react.
Ooh.
So in theory, this one Roswell incident and apparently a couple others created this whole group just for the future, because apparently it was happening enough times that Truman was getting freaked out.
Wow.
So according to the website ufoevidence.org, which, by the way, I have to give them a complete shout out because I'm going to basically verbatim list what they said. I was going to try to, put my own spin on it and not use this verbatim, but I mean, it's pretty brass tacks, and it's exactly what I would want to say.
Yeah,
anyway.
Like if they did it well, we can just keep it encapsulated.
So shout out to ufoevidence.org. But here are, I don't think I made this clear yet, but the Majestic 12, the 12 are apparently all 12 of the people that are in this committee that are responsible for...
Okay, I was going to ask, yeah.
That are meant to be either learning about this stuff or being part of the investigations, whatever it may be. there are a dozen.
They didn't.
Not a baker's dozen.
I was gonna say they didn't sprinkle in a 13th.
Nope. They really held back on that. But
man, somebody else could have got a shot in there, but no.
So the alleged Majestic 12 themselves in the 1940s were, I'm just going to go through all 12 of them. One of them was Rear Admiral Roscoe Hillenkotter. And he was just keep this in mind as I list like their credentials.
Right.
These are the 12 exact people you want on your fucking staff if you're making a top secret classified UFO.
Is the guy from Blink 182 in there?
Okay. If it weren't 1940s, yeah. But
I feel like he's the 13th. He's the baker's dozen. Just sprinkle him on top.
Blink 113, if you will. Okay, sure. So this is Rear Admiral Roscoe Hillenkotter, who was the first director of the CIA. He was later on the board for the National Investigation Committee on Aerial Phenomenon.
Wow.
Then there's Dr. Bush, who was the chairman of the National Defense Research Commission and Office of Scientific Research and Development, as well as the Joint Research and Development Board, as well as the National Advisory Committee on Aeronautics, aka future NASA.
Wowza.
See, he was the chairman for all of those things.
Oh my God.
Then there's James Forrestal, who was the Secretary of the Navy. He was the first Secretary of Defense. And interestingly, only 2 years in, he had a mental breakdown and died by the S word.
Oh, no.
By the way, pretty tasteless because I know that depression is a very real thing and mental health is very important. But a lot of people do use that as he seemed to have died under very odd circumstances. And so some people think that he had implied he was going to talk about Majestic 12 or like let the cat out of the bag.
Uh-huh.
And it's implied that there was some sort of assassination situation that
like a suicide was a cover-up or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
He did I didn't write down all of the little things, but I did read how it's under weird circumstances, and there are a lot of people who like were swearing up and down first of all, I know how this sounds, but like he wasn't someone who might have done that, or if he was someone who done that wouldn't have been the way he went, or like there were certain things he still had in order that he would have handled first. And
I see. So not everybody believed this tied up with the bow story.
Everybody that was close to him was like, I don't believe it for a fucking second.
Sure.
And then just the way that he went was like, there were like random scratch marks on him that didn't make a lot of sense, that implied like he was actually in defense. It was weird. So regardless, he was the Secretary of the Navy and the first Secretary of Defense, so obviously he would be on this group. Then there was General Nathan Twining, who was the commander of the Air Force Air Material Command. There was General Hoyt Vandenberg, who was the Chief of Military Intelligence. Okay. The second Director of Central Intelligence. He was the Chief of the Air Staff, and he later became the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. First of all, how do people have this many credentials in one lifetime?
How do you have the time?
How do you have the time?
You're
and
busy.
Then on top of that, you're going to be on the Majestic 12. Okay. Then there's...
add another thing to your plate? Really? You have room?
Who are you trying to impress at this point?
Oh my God, your resume's packed. Yeah.
Then there's Dr. Bronk, who was part of the Scientific Advisory Committee. He was the chairman of the National Research Council. He was the president of the National Academy of Sciences. He was also the president of Johns Hopkins University. And he was an advisory member of the Atomic Energy Commission.
Wowza.
Okay, that's half of them. Sorry it's so much, but just bear with me here. There's Dr. Hunsaker, who is the chairman of the Department of Aeronautical and Mechanical Engineering at MIT. He was the chairman of the National Advisory Committee on Aeronautics, aka future NASA. And then there was Rear Admiral Sowers, who was the first director of Central Intelligence, the first executive secretary of the National Security Council, Security Council, not Secretary Council, of the National Security Council, and he was a special consultant to President Truman on intelligence matters.
Okay.
Then there was Gordon Gray, who was the Assistant Secretary of the Army. He was a special assistant to President Truman. He was a senior staff assistant to Eisenhower. He was a chairman of the CIA's Psychological Strategy Board, and he was President Eisenhower's Assistant Secretary of Defense, also, just to throw another notch on his belt, was the president of University of North Carolina. So there's that. And then, I'm so sorry, I know it's a lot of words. There's Donald Menzel, who was the Harvard professor of astrophysics, the chairman to the astronomy department, a renowned UFOologist, a consultant for the CIA, and a consultant for the NSA with ultra top secret clearance. There was Dr. Berkner, who was an executive secretary of the Research and Development Board, who directed the studies of weapons systems evaluations, and he was part of other CIA UFO secret programs. And then finally, there was Major General Montag, who was the commanding officer at White Sands Proving Ground, and he later headed special projects in Albuquerque. I'm assuming that were UFO based. So that was a lot of words.
I was hoping the last one would be like, and then there was Ted, and he was a great guy.
That's number 13. It's like, and there's the star from Blink-182, who we talk about a lot.
He had a great singing voice, and just a gift for lyrics, really.
But so anyway, that was a lot of words. I don't expect anyone to have processed all that, but basically that was a shitload of people with a shitload of credentials that were all top secret clearance or like the highest expert in their fields, and all 12 of them are allegedly the people involved in the Majestic 12.
Do you think any of them felt like the lowest on the like ranking, you know what I mean? Like, do you think any of them felt a little bit like I'm the odd man out? Or I mean, they're all obviously all men, probably all white, I'm presuming.
Oh yeah. I'm sure all of them like were somehow intimidated by the rest, but like also rightfully so with that kind of like.
Oh, absolutely.
I would think maybe the guy who was like the president of like University of North Carolina, like just because like he wasn't like the director of Harvard. Because he was okay, that's true. Let's say he wasn't like the director of the CIA or military intelligence.
He didn't found NASA or something. Yeah, I guess
he didn't also found University of South Carolina. So like, what was he really doing? Okay, so of those 12, many of them during their time had testified about UFOs before to Congress, and not one of them ever mentioned the Majestic 12. And when these files came forward, when like Jamie and Bill, it's like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure or whatever.
Jamie and Bill.
When Jamie and Bill found this random reel of like briefing papers, by the time that came out, all 12 of them were dead. So nobody could even confirm this.
Oh, wow.
Like I said earlier, conspiracy theorists say that there was an inside job to assassinate anyone who was aware of this program and was willing to talk about it or make it public. One of them being James Forrestal, who was on the Majestic 12, and also JFK. Y'all conspiracy theorists love JFK.
He never can escape for a fucking minute. Like, he can't even sit out one conspiracy.
His body is somewhere being like, I have been gone for so long, please leave me alone. Like,
he's rolled over in his grave so many times that he's just probably burrowed himself further and further to the core of the earth.
So anyway,
that was a really weird thing to say, and I recognize it, and it was funny. I apologize.
No, you did a good job. But yeah, so those are just two of the assassinations that apparently had something to do with the Majestic 12 in one way or another. And oddly enough, even Eisenhower's great-granddaughter swears by the fact that President Eisenhower thought that Majestic 12 was real, and Eisenhower even met aliens face-to-face a few times.
What?
Saying, like, my great-grandpa, like, literally did that.
That's way cooler than my stories about my great-grandpa. Like, he didn't meet any fucking aliens.
My great-grandpa, well, I don't know what he did, but he certainly didn't see aliens.
It probably wasn't as interesting as this.
Clearly not.
He also wasn't the president. I guess that one would probably go first.
Okay, valid. I wonder
she already has a good story.
When you're that person, you're like, do I tell my grandpa as the president first or as like an alien?
As like a really cool... It depends on the party you're at, you know? Like your audience.
You just say like, oh, my great grandpa saw aliens, and then like your drunk friend comes by and is like, he was also the president, but you're bearing the lead.
She's never gonna tell you.
Okay, so from earlier, Bill and Jamie, we know them well. They spent the next few years trying to prove that these briefing papers were legit. And I mentioned forever ago in this conversation that this guy, Stanton Friedman, had also made a documentary called UFOs Are Real. He happened to be friends with Jamie and Bill, and so they were like, this guy would fucking help us for sure.
Yes.
And so all three of them were trying to help verify these files. They tried to keep it a secret for a while, but by 1985, which I think was a year later, they got another clue because Bill got, this time, an actual postcard in the mail, and it came from apparently New Zealand, and it had a picture of Ethiopia on it. So that's a lot of information I don't know what to do with.
A lot of clues, yeah.
So he gets a New Zealand postcard, picture of Ethiopia. I don't know if that's just to throw us off, but it had a cryptic note on the back, and it said, "Add zest to your trip to Washington. Try Reese's Pieces. For a stylish look, try Suitland."
Okay, I'm freaking out right now. I love a good cryptic message and cryptid message.
All of the above. Also, like, try Reese's Pieces. It's like, okay, this was the 80s. Like, E.T. just came out and he loved Reese's Pieces.
Point.
Like, you're not being really that crafty there. Like,
point, yeah.
We got it. It's about aliens. Okay. So add zest to your trip to Washington.
Lemons. That's what I'm assuming has to do with.
Something about extraterrestrials, and then for a stylish look, try Suitland.
What's suit? Like suit, like a
suit.
Like a 3-piece suit? Okay.
3-piece suit.
I thought you said soup, like soup plantation, and I was like,
Soup
weird.
Land sounds way cool. I like to think they have like there's a Campbell's factory where you just like get to make your own soup.
Just unlimited soup, yeah.
I used to think I was so cool in middle school when, remember Campbell's came out with like the sip,
Absolutely.
the cookin' sips. I thought I was the coolest when I would go to class and I would just drink my lunch, and I was like,
drink your soup.
You can't do this? Wow. Like, what a shame.
Oh, you just sliced your mouth open on that can trying to drink your Campbell's?
Well, then also, like, I wanted to show off, and then by lunchtime I didn't have anything to eat because I already drank my lunch.
Oh my God. I always thought those were so cool. We never had them. It was too wasteful of packaging, my mother said.
That's fair enough. And also, like, in today's world, that was like, what, 2 swallows? Like,
yeah, and also it seems like it does seem like a waste of money too. It's like, why not just whatever? But anyway,
it's literally just
I was always jealous of the kids who had them, so you were cool in my eyes.
It's just putting a sippy lid on a literal can of soup. But okay. So anyway, Suitland. They found out that Suitland is in Maryland. It's literally a town called Suitland.
Oh, it's a town. I thought it was like a Men's warehouse.
So very quickly, this cryptic note does not become very cryptic. When it's
I was going to say, we're already solving it.
Your trip in Washington, E.T., and also Suitland, Maryland. So they found out that in Suitland, Maryland, there is a National Archive Center that had been declassifying files. So they were like, okay, let's go to Suitland in hopes that some hint is that we can find something from a declassified document that helps us verify all of these pictures.
Right.
So while there, they did find a note at these National Archives from July 14th, 1954, which was probably 2 years after the alleged Majestic 12 was formed. And this note was written by Eisenhower's assistant to one of the members of the Majestic 12, General Twining. So the president's assistant and one of the members of the Majestic 12, this was a note between them.
Okay.
It said, the president has decided that the MJ-12 briefing should take place during the already scheduled White House meeting of July 16th, rather than following it as previously intended. So all it does is just like mention MJ-12 as part of a White House meeting. It doesn't really say anything creepy, but it at least proves that MJ-12 is a thing.
Good point, yeah.
And it happens to be between 2 people who are very heavily involved in the conspiracy as members. So during this time, they were still trying to keep things under wraps about Bill and Jamie. They were still trying to keep things under wraps about MJ-12 and what they were figuring out about it. But word leaked out to the UFO community eventually anyway. And by 1987, one of the people from the UFO community named Timothy Good also learned about these files, and I don't know how he got his hands on a copy of them, but he published them in his book called Above Top Secret. So even though Bill and Jamie and Stanton, their friend, all three of them were trying to keep this quiet, it ended up blowing up anyway because this other guy published the pictures in his book.
What an asshole.
So everyone knew at this point, by 1987, everybody knew Majestic 12 was like a real theory. And these files, because now that everyone has seen them, or these briefing pages that were potential proof, they now have gotten sent to the FBI, who is now investigating the validity of these pictures because they were worried that someone from high up was leaking top secret intel.
Okay.
And so the FBI went to the Air Force about it, but the Air Force said that no committee had ever been formed. But then again, that's like a breeding ground for conspiracy theorists to go like, of course the military would not tell us that it's legit.
Wink, wink. Yeah.
Yeah. So in December 1988, the FBI had to make a statement, and all they said was that basically the Air Force says the documents were fabricated, they're not legit, and the document is completely bogus. So...
Womp womp.
But then again, everyone could say, of course, the FBI would cover for the government. So here, though, are some other legitimate arguments against the Majestic 12 pages that we saw.
Oh, okay.
So...
Well, my first one is, why would this random hobbyist just get them in the mail? But, you know, that's just me.
That is pretty valid. And no one addresses that, but someone should, and it's apparently you.
Here I am. Hello. I'm 13th on the list. I have something to say.
So these are some, like, formatting things that people noticed in the papers that, like, don't make sense if they were official classified documents. So one thing is that Rear Admiral Hillenkotter, he was, at the time, a Rear Admiral, not an Admiral, as the file says. So somewhere in the file it calls him Admiral. And apparently that's like a 2-star difference.
Oh, so it's a big deal.
So, like, they would not have accidentally not called him Rear Admiral. Another thing is that the files were that referenced Roswell called it a Roswell Army Air Base, but in 1947 it would have been called a field and not a base.
That's so cool and interesting that, like, the semantics make such a big difference.
I know you love semantics,
Christine. I do. I love them. I can fight about them all day.
So another thing is that terms used in these documents were too modern for the time, so they use the word media instead of press, and they use extraterrestrial instead of alien, which would have been the more common words of the time. Another thing is that the formatting for the date on the files and the numbering system, like the numbers above on how to file it, they were not accurate for how things would have been archived at the time. And also President Truman's signature on some of the letters were too identical, as if it had just been copied.
Interesting.
And another thing is that one of the stamps across one of the papers said top secret restricted information, but that wasn't an official stamp until the Nixon administration.
I see.
So it's almost like someone was trying to make this outdated documentation at a later date to make it look like it was older than it was. So further proof, which I think this is the FBI's doing. I never got a clear answer on this, but if you look at the papers now on the FBI list, a lot of them literally have the words bogus written on them, like all across the paper, like almost like don't even pay attention to this, it's completely bogus.
Like void, but...
Yeah, like void.
Yeah.
So I think that was the FBI's doing, but the way that in one of the articles I read made it sound was that it already said bogus, and like everyone was ignoring that until like the FBI said it literally says bogus. What are you paying? I'm pretty sure the FBI wrote bogus. I don't think everyone spent years trying to fact check this if it said bogus across it.
Right.
So, but I wanted to make that if you look at it now, you will see that it says bogus all over it.
I see. Okay.
So now in 1992, there are allegedly even more Majestic 12 documents showing up to different UFOologists, which now that people are questioning how valid it is, it's almost like someone is like beating a dead horse and like giving, like trying to keep pushing this narrative even though people are already kind of over it.
Right.
Or people are already thinking it's like not valid. Some people swear that it was real, though. So, like, solid conspiracy theorists were, like, still taking this super seriously. So when more documents were showing up, people were still looking into it. But other people were like, okay, like, we can already guess that this probably isn't legit. In 1994, another film roll was sent to another UFOologist who happened to be friends with Stanton. So it's weird that it's, like, keeping it in the family. But the film roll had part of a manual instruction list on how to take care of UFO crash remains. Like a little too on the nose, my friend. And then
like a
also,
WikiHow page.
like if you could print out WikiHow and then rip it up a little bit, yeah. Then there were like sketches of UFOs. There was a list of meetup sites between aliens and humans, and then there were investigation reports on the Interplanetary Phenomena Unit. And apparently this investigation happened a month after the Roswell incident and was conducted by people from Majestic 12.
Okay.
So it was just like a lot of like very on the nose shit.
Yeah.
It was almost like we can tell people are losing interest. Let's like give you like more solid looking info so to keep the story going.
Right. Like over validating it sort of. Yeah.
Perfect. Yes. Over validating it. So
interesting.
Around the same time, these UFO cover-ups were becoming such a big deal in pop culture. I mean, in the 80s, there were so many movies about aliens. There were, like, I mean, even Star Wars had already happened, like, in the 70s. So people were all about this, like, UFO craze. And it was such a huge deal that, like, the government might be covering something up that apparently the government literally put out 2 of their own reports addressing everything they could think of about Roswell that they were willing to tell the public. And in 94, there was one that was nearly 1,000 pages.
Whoa.
And it discussed everything they knew about Roswell. And then 3 years later, they came out with another report that said they couldn't trust eyewitnesses from the Roswell crash because they got interviewed too late. And so their stories might be convoluted. And they were giving a bunch of excuses for why eyewitness testimonies to aliens are not real or shouldn't be taken seriously.
Okay.
Again, conspiracy theorists could say, of course, these are the reports they would put out.
Yeah.
Oh, one of the things they also listed in the report apparently was that any aliens people had ever seen were just test crash dummies being carried in weather balloons. Okay.
Which, by the way, is terrifying in its own right.
Yeah, I know.
Saying.
So, Roswell was basically in their reports, in both of these reports, they were like, everyone needs to stop taking this so seriously. It was not aliens. It's nothing more than like mass paranoia that started during the Cold War, and it slowly morphed like in society into sci-fi pop culture, and it just never left. And like we made a mistake writing flying disc in one newspaper article, and like there's a huge fucking craze. So they were like really doubling down the fact that like UFOs and aliens are not real or not something to be taken seriously. But the last thing I'm going to talk about is a little history lesson for you, because if they deny all of this, why would they have ever even said in 1947 during this Roswell incident, why would they have so publicly and so confidently said, we have collected and are inspecting a literal flying saucer at a military base? So that's one of the big arguments of like, we can't trust anything you say after that, because that was the first thing you wanted to tell everybody, is that you found a flying fucking saucer.
Yeah.
So why would they have said that at all? So here is history class with me, your teacher, on UFO enthusiasts and how they came to be and how they are how the military portrays or sees UFO enthusiasts and UFO culture at all.
I'm intrigued.
So UFO enthusiasts are pretty similar in many ways. In the Venn diagram, it's a very big oval in the middle with conspiracy theorists. So when you think about conspiracy theorists, usually they are older white conservative men who think the government is hiding something, and the quote patriotic thing to do is discover all this info and divulge it to the masses. And a lot of UFO enthusiasts think the same way. Fit the bill. So things have not changed, shocker, that conspiracy theorists were as they are today. I feel like I described a lot of conspiracy theorists today. They were pretty similar back then when it came to UFOs, especially during the hype of UFO paranoia, since it was like a time of worry and all these alien reports were coming in. So just this mass hysteria really fed into conspiracy theorists' belief of aliens.
Right.
So apparently one of the things that they were known to do, these UFO theorists, is they would regularly stalk Air Force bases for proof of UFOs. And they would bring their cameras with them to try to get pictures and photo evidence of what they had seen at these classified bases. But during the Cold War, the Air Force realized that these conspiracy theorists might actually leak legitimate top secret photos on like experimental weapons that they planned on using during the Cold War. And they feared that Soviets might actually go undercover in these UFO groups to either get closer to bases or to find out through photos what fellow enthusiasts were finding.
Sure.
So what's ironic about this is that the UFO enthusiasts who thought that they were being helpful to national security were actually the threat.
Great point.
So this freaked out the Air Force, and they were like, what the fuck do we do with all these people coming onto our bases and thinking that like they're gonna like, you know, tell the world our secrets, but by exposing our secrets, they're actually like really putting us at risk.
Mm-hmm.
So UFO, especially at 3 different bases, there was the Kirtland base, which developed modified aircrafts. So they were like taking like planes and airborne vehicles and like zhuzhing them up. And then there was the Holloman base, which held classified experimental designs, and Area 51, which test flew these experimental designs. And these were like 3 of the main bases, Air Force bases, that these UFO groups kept going to. And aka this is where the Air Force did not want conspiracy theorists going at all. These are the last 3 we want you to accidentally leak pictures of.
Right.
So they thought like maybe we could just arrest people for trespassing, but then they thought maybe that implied there was something like super juicy intel wise, and they didn't want like anyone on the other side to get suspicious.
That's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah. So the government chose to gaslight them, which like,
oh, how nice.
Probably not the first time or last time that's ever happened. Yeah. So they decided that they were going to be tricky, and they confessed that all the UFOs and aliens were real, and all of these UFO groups were legitimate in their concerns. And it was
got us.
And it was to distract them from noticing the actual experimental equipment being built on the base.
Holy shit.
And this was assuming that like people on the other side would care less about that than like their priority of like what the US's capabilities were during war. They were like, oh, if we have them worrying about either aliens or like our nuclear weapons, they're going to care more about the nuclear weapons. So if we make this all look like UFO stuff, they're just going to ignore it.
Wow.
So this led to several deep layers of the government feeding people disinformation, especially people who were already skeptical and suspicious. But the plus side is that they decided that they were going to use this to their advantage with UFOologists, and with UFO groups believing all of this stuff, the Air Force tricked them again and formed alliances with them and said, if we give you info and intel about all these aliens we're finding, aka this is all bullshit, but if we give you all this intel on all these classified, UFO reports, then can you tell us what other people in your UFO groups are up to? Because they were afraid that they might be like Soviet spies undercover.
Oh my God.
So basically they started fabricating fake proof of aliens just to get these UFO groups to turn on each other so they could find out what everyone was keeping track of and what pictures everyone had.
And we're positive they were doing that? They're not just now saying that as like a...
This was apparently like a whole fucking thing.
God.
So the nail in the coffin on whether or not the Majestic 12 is legitimate or not is that Jamie and Bill, who found these this undeveloped film and found the original briefing papers, Bill Moore eventually admitted to having an alliance with the Air Force even before Majestic 12 was on their radar, like before he ever knew anything about it. So a lot of people still say the Majestic 12 is legit. And to be fair, I definitely believe there's a council somewhere keeping tabs on UFO shit.
Oh, absolutely. That much I don't doubt. Yeah.
Maybe it's not the Majestic 12, but there's some Majestic 12 inspired group, I guess.
Yeah.
But apparently he was telling the Air Force about his friends in his UFO group, and he thought that the Majestic 12 files were like a reward for doing a good job at like outing all of his friends and what they were up to and what they were learning about UFOs from sneaking onto the bases. So he ended up getting deemed a traitor in the UFO community.
No shit.
But one piece of intel that Bill told the Air Force about was this guy named Paul, who was building equipment for even the Air Force, but he was building a bunch of like crazy instruments, and he was a big UFO fan. He believed that aliens were living on Air Force bases, and so he started taking his own plane and flying above the bases and taking pictures, and he accidentally got these pictures of aircrafts that were not supposed, they were like super classified. Like he should have not gotten pictures of those aircrafts. And so to shut him up, the Air Force said that they were like UFOs and aliens were involved in the crash, and they even built other fake alien related stuff so that Paul would take a picture of it, like as if he was getting away with it. But they planted things that Paul would take pictures of so he would get distracted or misled to think they were aliens.
Or in case it got leaked, it like wasn't actual information that could be used against them.
Exactly. So,
wow.
But apparently Bill was helping them, was helping conspire with the Air Force to like trick Paul, who I guess might have been one of his friends. But anyway, Bill's credibility completely nosedived when it came to his backing that the Majestic 12 was a thing. There's still a lot of controversy around it, and many people note that in the same year as the Roswell Incident, even if the Majestic 12 isn't real, it is interesting that the same year of this UFO crash, the National Security Council and the CIA were created, and only a few years later, so was the NSA. So they're like, something happened that stirred the pot, and all these councils start getting created.
War, but
okay, you're thinking like a realist here.
I mean, I'm just saying. I know there was a lot of groups formed during that time, but
on a show called on the show Ancient Aliens, one guy hacked into NASA and the Pentagon servers and actually found what he considers proof of Majestic 12, although we don't know what that proof is. So what could that mean?
He's just like, trust me.
Yeah, he's like, you just, I promise. And then there's also people who think that the M in MJ12 might not actually mean majestic, but majority, because there's there's allegedly a Freemasons alien contact program called the Committee of the Majority, and it's supposed to lead to like a new world order. So they think that MJ12 with all these powerful people might actually be affiliated with the Freemasons. So some people think it might not just be aliens, but like world domination. And others say that Majestic 12 could have existed, but maybe is now defunct, or maybe one of the departments is in connection with Area 51. Some people think it could be bogus. And the last thing I'm going to say is Roswell is obviously a massive UFO tourist destination now, but it does have an annual UFO festival, which is where we should go the next time you're pregnant.
I was going to say, or just the next year so I can imbibe in some alien-themed cocktails. But yes, I am definitely in for our 2.0 baby moon.
Anyway, that was the story of the Majestic 12.
Wow, dude, I think alien shit is so fascinating. And then whenever the government gets involved, it like, instead of like making it less likely to me, it just adds more creep factor to it, because it's like every time the government gets involved in such high levels, I'm like, I don't know, there must be something going on if they're so concerned about.
I refuse to believe that there isn't at least one legitimate pseudo Majestic 12 group out there.
There has
where, like,
to be
high ends and
just
experts
for
in the field
of keeping an eye out. You know what I mean? Like,
even if they're just like hall monitors, you know, but like just keeping tabs open. Just
I completely agree.
Anyway,
fascinating. I love alien stories. Thank you, Em. That made my day.
You're welcome.
I mean, it would have been nice if it were a space cowboy, but next time.
I can find you a space cowboy. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but even if I have to make it up, I'll Hercene shifter.
Listen, we got Xenon out of our own brains, so I'm sure we could find one.
That was not a work of our brains. That was a work of your hands, and your hands crafted that gift. So
my mental instability. Yeah, it's beautiful work of art.
Hey, your mental instability gave us Xenon, and you double tap on highlighted
and
text.
Lemon.
And lemon. Look,
think about it.
I'm not saying mental illness is 100% a bad thing, you know? Like, there's some good that comes out of it.
Use it to its advantage.
Yeah, you get it.
Somebody, I don't know if you saw this, tweeted at us that they were listening to the podcast and a native ad came up and their partner was like, oh, I want to hear how sweaty Christine is. And I was like, oh, clearly I've made a name for myself in these advertisements.
If that one person is listening, let's talk about it again. Christine, your armpits are gross. No, I'm just kidding.
They were.
They were.
I won't argue. I won't argue that they were very sweaty. Now I exclusively use native. Like I've switched completely over. And two of my bathrooms all have native just in case I'm upstairs or downstairs. There's one in my car. And I actually just ran out of my beautiful sage jasmine one. Ooh. And I'm going to go and make a new order today, which I'm like weirdly excited about to get like a new order of native, but it's the best.
Also, Native's legendary aluminum-free deodorant, but they also have body wash, toothpaste. They have sunscreen that's mineral-based, so they now have a broad spectrum SPF 30 sunscreen for your face and body, and it smells, first of all, you can get unscented, but you can also get coconut and pineapple, which I'm telling you, like, the smell is beyond. Stay fresh, stay clean with Native by going to nativedeo.com/ATWWD or use promo code ATWWD at checkout and get 20% off your first order.
That's nativedeo.com/ATWWD or use promo code ATWWD at checkout for 20% off your first order. Every time we do a feels read, I am so relaxed already because I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I have that in my nightstand right now. And it always just is such a nice way to ease my anxiety. It's just a nice reminder that I have feels at the ready just in case, because CBD, by the way, is great for helping you feel your best. It's proven to greatly reduce anxiety, pain, and sleeplessness, things that I think we've all suffered from at one point or another. And they even help you, find the right dose for you to help you kind of ease into the CBD process.
In fact, Feels offers a free CBD hotline to help guide your personal experience so that you find your perfect dose. The Feels customer service team is dedicated to making sure that you get the best use of your CBD. I'm pretty sure every person that listens to the show either experiences it themselves or knows somebody who experiences anxiety, stress. Hello, I think all of us have experienced stress, especially in the last year.
Yep.
And Feels is just a better way to make you feel better.
So start feeling better with Feels. Become a member today by going to feels.com/drink and you'll get 50% off your first order with free shipping.
That's FEALS.com/drink to become a member and get 50% automatically taken off your first order with free shipping. Feals.com/drink.
Look, it's Gio's report card.
Oh, wait, roughing it. Oh,
roughing it.
That's so sweet.
Let's see. Oh, he played some today.
Look at him.
He usually gets low energy. I'm not much of a player. I prefer to just hang out and watch my friends play. But today he got medium energy. I played some with my friends and rested some. Okay, that makes me very happy.
That's so sweet.
It's very rare that he gets that.
That's so, like, you know what? He is doing what he needs to do, okay?
Oh, he's like me on the playground. Like, he just kind of skirts on the outside and, like, eats grass and looks out the fence longingly. It's like me in elementary school.
Yeah.
Just a little bit emo. All right. Well, on that note, I have a story for you today, Em. And this is a story that I discovered on the show I've been binging like crazy.
Oh gosh, what?
It's called Disappeared.
Oh, okay.
And it's on Discovery Plus, which probably by now anyone who follows me on social media knows that it's like the only like basically brand I work with at this point, because I'm like, it's just so on brand that I'm like, I watch it anyway all the time. I might as well,
I also steal your password.
Yeah, I know. I made you a profile. Did you see it yet?
No, it was so sweet.
Did you see it?
No. Why?
Obviously not, because you just called it sweet. Okay.
Why? What did you name it?
Oh, well, whenever you want to watch Ghost Adventures, you'll find out.
I'm gonna go find out while you're talking. I'm gonna go find this thing.
Yes, so
it's probably like Ugly Poopy Head or something, isn't it?
Well, you're pretty much on point there. It's really not far off.
For you. Okay, hang on. Poop Head. Oh my gosh.
It's a picture of an alien. It's just Poop Head.
How did I guess that so?
It's actually scary how quickly you just knew. You just knew.
It was like a classic Poop Head move, you know?
It's classic Poop Head action, and that's what I did, so I apologize. But yes, I've been watching a ton of Discovery Plus, as usual, and I found this Disappeared episode, and I was like, at first I was like, oh, this is, as always, like, this is just sad and whatever. And then it took a twist, and I was like, holy shit, like, I didn't see that coming. And so it ends up being, like, way more bananas than I expected. So I'm excited for kind of a twisty-turny episode today.
I love a twisty-turny, topsy-turvy situation.
I know, right? So this is the story of the disappearances of Terrance Williams and Felipe Santos. So we are in the South. We are in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And 27-year-old Terrance Dion Williams, he is moving from Chattanooga down to Florida. And Terrance is really close to his family. His mother especially, they have like a very close bond, which of course makes it all the sadder when the show starts going and she's being interviewed. Mm-hmm. But they're extremely close. His mother's name's Marcia. She's kind of a recurring character in the story. And Terrance was moving down there, and it looked like it's always, I feel like it always happens this way in this show, where it's like they were getting their life together. They were finally like feeling on top of the world and like happy and content, you know, and it's
always that they either had the perfect life and they were perfect people, or they weren't perfect people, but were like finally like getting themselves on track and like feeling good about them. It's always something happy. Hopeful.
It's always like the positive gets smashed into a million pieces.
It's always hopeful.
So Terrance was moving down, and according to the Disappeared blog, in 1995, he had pleaded guilty to a robbery and was sentenced to 11 months in prison, part of which was probation. And he also spent 50 days in jail after a DUI charge and then driving on a revoked license. And he had separated from his partner, so he had a child support case coming up in relevance to his 4 children. And if he didn't show up to this court case on January 14, 2004, it would have meant he had to serve 60 days in jail and pay a $5,000 fine. But he was also very close to his kids. He was like very concerned with paying child support. Like he wasn't the type to kind of run from that.
He was on top of it. He was trying to be on top of it.
He was on top of it. Yes. So Terrance had just gotten a new job working at the Pizza Hut in Bonita Springs, Florida. And he moved into, I know.
What year was this?
2004.
Oh, it's still Pizza Hut Prime. Okay.
Pizza Hut what?
It was like Pizza Hut Prime when like everyone was going to Pizza Hut. It was like the cool
you said
place.
Pride. I was like, did they make their own festival?
I was pretty proud of Pizza Hut. They had some good stuff.
They have something to be proud of, I guess. So he had started a job there, and he moved into a new apartment in East Naples called Randall Circle, and he shared this apartment with a roommate. And so being in Florida, he was able to see his mom way more often. And according to the Disappeared blog, he and Marcia would speak on the phone daily, which is very sweet.
So
and
sweet.
More than I talk to my mom, and she lives down the street.
I was literally going to say, don't tell my mom that that's
tell my mom.
Even an option.
I think my mom would be like, don't tell Christine that's an option because she won't leave me alone. But yeah, don't tell either of us. And he would spend Sundays driving with her to the mall, shopping. They would eat dinner together. And he drove his mom to work every day. So they were like extremely close. And if she wasn't free, his roommate Jason, would drive him in. And Terrance had a suspended license. So at this point, he wasn't able to drive. So if he needed a ride, the roommate, either his mother or his roommate would drive him. So, at around midnight on January 11, 2004, Terrance was invited out to a party with some of his Pizza Hut coworkers. So, Pizza Hut party. Oh
my God, so fun.
I bet that was a good time.
You know, like at a party, you want to have someone bring a whole thing of pizza. And when you work at Pizza Hut, you could just bring like 5 pies for free, but you're probably sick of pizza.
That, you know what? I was like, that's genius, but then you're right. You're probably around it all day. It's like,
when I worked at Chipotle, the last thing I wanted to eat was a burrito.
I mean, it makes a whole lot of sense.
If I found out there's going to be like a Chipotle like taco party, I'd be like, ugh, I'll just eat before I get there.
That's when you need to partner with another fast food chain and be like, you guys bring Taco Bell, we'll bring pizza, we'll trade.
Well, that's why you got to work at one of those like they've got like a KFC Taco Bell combo.
Yep, the combo.
You got to be friends with everyone there, and then the KFC people get tacos.
Create
Taco
an
Bell
alliance
people get chicken
of sorts. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it actually makes a lot of sense. Wow, genius. So they had a pizza party, probably sans pizza, probably plus tacos. I don't really know. Don't quote me on that. But they had a party, and he clearly wanted to go out, but he had a suspended license, and so he was not supposed to be driving. But he decided to push his luck, and he decided to drive to the party anyways. Ooh. This is where it all, as we can probably guess, starts to go downhill and get sad. So he had this white Cadillac that he was very proud of, that he loved, and he decided to drive to the party anyways. And the following morning, Jason found it strange when he discovered that Terrance wasn't home. Jason called Terrance's mom, Marcia, which I love that the roommate is like close with
I know, like
the mom.
How invested is this mother
so
with
cute.
Like I love like honestly though my mom and RJ text each other and it's sometimes an odd pairing.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
I guess it makes sense. Yeah. Whatever.
That's kind of cute. So Marcia knew this wasn't a case of Terrance having disappeared himself because he, as you know, like talked to her every day basically. And it wasn't like him to not tell anybody if he was going to stay over somewhere or not come back until the next day. And so she filed a missing persons report pretty much immediately. And according to Chattanoogan.com, which just, what a fun name.
What a fun name.
A few days went by and no one heard from Terrance. And of course now his mother is like in full panic because she literally talks to him daily.
Oh, yeah.
And he depends on her for a ride to work. So just very odd. And of course, the police, are resistant at first. He's a grown man, so it can be really hard to submit a missing persons report on somebody who's a grown up. And, they say like, oh, well, someone's allowed to leave without telling anybody. So it's kind of hard in these instances to file a report. But she's unable to get assistance from the police. So she petitions her family in Tennessee to help track down her son. And although they don't find Terrance, within a few days, they find his white Cadillac.
Ooh.
And the Cadillac has been sitting in a wrecking company's parking lot.
Oh, it got towed.
Yes, exactly. And so knowing he was driving the car without a license or insurance, his family fears he's been arrested. And that's why his car has been taken and he is not responding to his phone calls.
Uh-huh.
So they quickly learned the car was towed from a cemetery the morning after Terrance was last seen at the party. And so Marcia goes directly to the cemetery to question the employees, and she's told a pretty weird story. So she goes to the cemetery, and they're like, yeah, we know exactly what you're talking about. They had seen a police officer, pat Terrance down and then put him in the back of a police car.
Oh, no.
And then the car was towed shortly thereafter. And so they're like, oh, okay, so we have a lead. Like, the police arrested him for driving without a license.
Yeah, they got to know where he is.
Yeah, someone has to know. So the police officer who had signed the tow ticket for the car was an officer named Stephen Calkins. Good old Steve. Steve becomes...
I like that it's like, almost like... Oh, wait. Stephen Hawking? No, that's stupid.
What?
I thought it sounded a lot like Stephen Hawking.
Thank God I can edit these now.
I'm sorry. Even my own brain was like, shut the fuck up.
I saw you like pause and like regret it already. And then I was like, maybe I should just keep talking. But then I was like, it's too late. I has to get it out.
It's too much. It's okay.
It's slant rhyme, sort of. Not
it's
really.
Stupid. Just, it's not worth my time or yours or anyone's.
Oh, don't worry. I've already counted the seconds that have been wasted away in my life. Thank you. Just kidding. Stephen Calkins, he is the officer who signed the tow ticket. So, of course, they go to Stephen Calkins and they're like, hey, you towed Terrance's car. And he goes, Terrance, I don't remember that. And also, I don't know anyone named Terrance.
Oh, fuck off. Well, unless someone like stole this man's car and pretended to be a police officer, fuck this
and
story.
Had his badge and his signature.
Am I allowed to say fuck that on this so far?
Are you allowed to say fuck that on the podcast?
No, I mean, like, are we allowed to hate this person?
oh, you can hate whomever you want, and
Okay, currently fuck this person until I find out that, like, they're the hero or something. Okay.
I do always love when you kind of are hesitant about, like, hating on somebody.
It's been enough times.
And I have to lead you in the right direction.
It's been enough times where I've, like, cussed someone out, and then I find out, like, 2 seconds later
that I'm like, and they were the victim. Oops.
Right. Yeah. Yikes.
And I'm like, no. And sometimes I'm like, no, that's the one who was murdered. And you're like, oh, I loved them. Just kidding. No. So Officer Calkins is like, who's Terrance? And they're like, are you fucking kidding me? It's like been, what, a day, a few weeks.
Right.
According to a great blog that I love called It's Crime O'Clock Somewhere by a woman named Kylie. Gio's home from daycare.
Happy puppy
Hi,
dog.
honey. He's sneezing everywhere. Okay.
Oh, that means he wants to play.
He's rubbing his face all over the floor. That's charming. Okay. So he plays the Terrance Who card, and they're like, that's sketchy because it's only been a few days. You don't remember signing this tow card with your signature on it. So according to this blog, It's Crime O'Clock Somewhere, on top of Officer Calkins having signed the tow ticket, a witness at the cemetery had overheard Officer Calkins spouting some racist remarks over the dispatch on the night of Terrence's disappearance. And interestingly enough, on the disappeared episode, they have the actual audio of the back and forth, and it's like, it's like
vomitous.
Skin crawling. Yeah, it's vomitous. Because you can hear, like, knowing the story, context of the story, and then hearing the call is, like, just so ick. So at one point, Calkins had commented, oh, there's a homie Cadillac. Like, he sees, like, a homie Cadillac.
Okay,
you know,
next.
he calls it. Yeah, next. And he says it's blocking a road. And remember, he literally said he has no clue about this Cadillac. He has no clue who Terrance is. Like, so there's literal dispatch audio of him being, like, joking about, you know, this, like, Cadillac being
even
in the
if
road.
You have amnesia, it happened, my friend. So let's get it together.
Like, you either you need to see a doctor or you're full of shit.
Yep.
And then to contradict himself again, at 1:12 p.m. on January 12th, Calkins had also asked dispatch for a background check on a man named Terrance Williams. So he literally requested a background check on Terrance Williams, and now he's going, I've never met a Terrance. I don't know who that is. So hearing this, Marcia and her husband, Terrence's stepfather, filed their first complaint against Steve Calkins. And because this was escalating into a bigger issue, like within the police force, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and FBI got involved. And when Calkins was confronted with the evidence, like the literal audio of dispatch of him, like, joking around about the car and calling him by his name, Terrance, and the multiple witnesses at the cemetery who saw this happen, according to the Claremont Sun, Calkins changed his story. Wow, what a shock.
Cal surprise.
Surprise.
I'm always blown away. Like, I certainly could not get away with, like, I don't know what this guy did so far. I'm going to assume maybe
like,
a murder.
Nothing great. Let's just put it that way.
I know I can never get away with anything because there's so many GPS trackers and cameras and whatever. Like, there's
recording equipment. Everything's recorded.
There's so much stuff in society that, like, I know I could not get away with something bad, which, by the way, shocks me that so many people do get away with it. But also, like, for this guy to just be like, oh yeah, I'm fine, I'm gonna be in the clear. It's like, you were literally being recorded.
Like, I've never heard of him, and it's like, 2 days ago you called somebody and asked for a full background check on first and last name.
At least turn off the camera if you're gonna, like, I mean, many do. Okay, anyway.
Anything. It's just so, it's like brazen. It's so brazen of, like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's just like, I shy from using the word, like, entitled, but it feels like very, like, bold, very bold.
It
to
does.
Be like,
it does, and it is somewhat entitled of, like, well, what are you gonna do about it? Like,
yeah.
I don't. So that's exactly what happened. Is he changed his story immediately. So he now says he had pulled Terrance over because his car appeared in distress, which again goes against, like, the whole homie Cadillac thing. But he says, oh, the car seemed to be having trouble. And so he said he stopped. Then Terrance, the driver, asked him for a ride to work at a local Circle K. So he agreed.
Okay.
And he drove him to Circle K.
Okay.
Now, there's some weird things here. First of all, do we remember where Terrance works?
Oh, the hut.
He doesn't work at a Circle K. So people are like, that's odd, but okay. And so Wyatt asked him to drop him off there. And like when they asked Officer Calkins this, he says, well, maybe he lied and was giving me a false place of work to drop him off so that he was could have. So it's like, I guess, yeah, sure. But the other weird thing is Terrance had a suspended driver's license. Like, why would Officer Calkins just be like, sure, I'll drive you to work, no problem, no ticket, nothing, like, see ya.
Yeah, like he definitely like could have like reasonably gotten in
like pretty big trouble. Like he had just been on probation. He was driving with a suspended license. Like, it's not great. Oh, he's home. Welcome home, G. This is what I was trying to avoid, but as usual, we recorded way too late, so they closed.
We really did get very off track earlier.
I know. It's like 7 o'clock here. I'm like, holy shit.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's not. It's not you. So they were like, well, why would he just let him walk free? Like, that's so strange. And he just was like, oh, I felt bad. He seemed like a nice guy. And they were like, all right. So just like an odd change of pace here with this story. But now they had a new lead and they were like, okay, fine. Circle K, we'll check out the Circle K. So when police went through Circle K's CCTV footage, shocker, there is no sign of Calkins or Terrance on the night of the disappearance. So people who were working at Circle K on that night also never saw a police car in the parking lot. So that was another odd thing. Yeah. And despite all this, Calkins stuck to his story that Terrance had asked for a ride to his job at the Circle K, and that's what he did, and he just let him off with a warning. So that's the story. So Calkins continued to butt heads with witnesses because, again, the bystanders at the cemetery are like pretty adamant about what they saw. They estimated that Williams and Calkins' exchange happened in about half an hour, but Officer Calkins says, oh, it was more like a few minutes. It was like maybe 10 minutes max. Okay. But remember, first he said he didn't even have this exchange, so it's like, who are we going to believe here?
Okay. And also, like, I feel like if you're the nice enough cop that's going to let someone who's like actually like kind of in trouble, like get off with a warning, I feel like that makes you feel like a safe enough cop to like tell the real story about where you work.
Yeah. If you're already like in the clear,
I can imagine if this guy was threatening, then like you wouldn't want to tell him where you work.
Yes, if you didn't want him to know your identity or whatever. But if he did, like, you're right. Like, sincerely say, like, you're fine.
Just tell me where you work.
Warning.
I get it. I've been there.
I'll give you a ride. Yeah. It doesn't make much sense. Exactly. So they're saying it took a half hour. He's like, no, it was only a couple minutes. And when
but also it didn't happen.
But also I forget who that is. I have no clue. Terrance who? What? So also when he was confronted with these discrepancies, he stormed out in anger, alleging that the sheriff's office was twisting his words and they were out to get him for political reasons because it was an election year because he worked for the sheriff's office. So like now he's turning this into like a victim thing, like I'm being attacked. It's like, cool, it's not really about you right now, but I guess it is.
So where is the guy then, since you're... Yeah. Oh, victim, please tell us where the guy is.
Yeah, then why don't you fix this, please? Like, make it all go away.
Very quickly, you could not be the victim if you just tell us what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're the one acting suspicious. So the FBI went through Calkins' GPS. Like you said, there's fucking GPS on a police car. And so they go through his GPS to search for all the relevant areas that could be linked to the case, but they couldn't find anything. His phone records also weren't helping him out because there was no indication that Calkins ever called or got in touch with the Circle K store to confirm the story or to check up. So nothing with Circle K. That seemed to just be kind of made up. And remember that it comes back into play. This is just a wild story. So with still no sign of her son, Marcia Williams filed another complaint against Officer Steve Calkins. And with his poor conduct, lack of cooperation, 3 polygraph tests that showed evidence of deception, aka he failed 3 polygraphs.
Solid.
Derogatory language and negligence that is now like publicly released on audio. All of this led to him being fired. So he was fired from the police force. And the Disappeared blog writes how Calkins appealed the ruling, but it was upheld and his dismissal stood. He refused to appear before a grand jury, was not charged with a crime, and subsequently moved to Cedar Rapids, Iowa with his family. So he just was like, And
that was just the end of it?
Bye. Almost. Not quite.
Okay.
Not quite. In the grand scheme of things, the story is very much not over.
Well, so I remember you saying the disappearances of multiple people. Great.
That is exactly right. So Marsha Williams is contacted unexpectedly by Miami's Mexican consulate.
Okay.
And after hearing about the tragedy of Martha's son's case, the consulate thought the case sounded strangely familiar.
Oh, shit.
And it turns out that Steve Calkins was a name that had been floating around the Mexican consulate recently for very similar and suspicious reasons.
Oh, God. So, I was going to say, because I was like, if this guy's already getting fired and we haven't even gotten through multiple disappearances, where do the others come in? And apparently there's a prequel to the story. Got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. They already happened.
Okay.
Exactly. So a couple months before Terrence's disappearance, on October 14th, 2003, at 6:30 a.m., a young man named Felipe Santos was on his way to work with his two brothers when they got involved in a small fender bender. And this was not good because he was living here in the United States from Mexico, didn't have proper identification. So already bad to get mixed up in the police force in that incident. But he is in a fender bender. He has to be there for, to talk to officers. And guess who fucking shows up on scene
is it Mr. Stephen Hawking? I think so.
Stephen Hawking. He rolls up in his wheelchair. No, it's not Stephen Hawking, unfortunately. That might have been a better ending, but no.
That would have been a much better ending, because then they would have probably just hung out,
talked about stars,
talked about time travel,
cosmos. Yeah, it would have been a good time.
Wow, what I would give to be friends with Stephen Hawking.
If only. Okay. If only. R.I.P. So, Steve Calkins shows up. Wow, how shocking. He was caught in a pickle. He was driving without a license, without insurance, and so he was put in the back of the police car, having been cited for reckless driving and driving without insurance. And the police officer who had stopped him was a lovely man named Steve Calkins. It's worth saying at this point that Felipe Santos is Mexican, Terrance Williams is black, and Steve Calkins is white. I don't know if anybody guessed otherwise, but that's pretty...
I mean, maybe we shouldn't be assuming things, but I certainly did.
Yeah, based on the derogatory statements and stuff, it's at least there's definitely some racism happening. So yes, this is just to give a full picture. This is where all three of them stood. And after this incident, the 24-year-old Felipe was never seen or heard from again. So basically the last time anyone saw him was being put into the back of Steve Calkins's car.
Wow.
So Felipe Santos had been born January 1st, 1979, and had recently moved to Florida illegally to earn some money doing work on farm fields and construction sites to send back to his wife, Apollonia Cruz Cortez, who was taking care of their newborn baby. And when Santos's boss heard that Felipe had been driven away in a police car, they immediately contacted the jail thinking he'd be there and that they could bail him out, but he wasn't there. So when authorities asked Calkins what had happened after you drove away with him in your car, he explained, I decided to let Felipe go because he was cooperative. And they said, what did you do? And he said, I dropped him off at the local Circle K.
So this is just the same fucking story. He just literally, he's so fucking lazy. He couldn't even come up with a different alibi
store. He couldn't say CVS. He said fucking Circle K, and they were like, wait.
He couldn't say it would be really ironic if he said Pizza Hut. But wow. Okay, so this guy really just doesn't even try.
You live in Florida. You could turn this way and be like, Walgreens? I don't know.
It makes sense now if he was saying why he was so prepared to get away with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he'd already done it. Probably they put him on the spot where'd you go? And probably he just couldn't think of anything and just said Circle K because it was what he said last time.
Right. He was like, I've been here before.
It just repeated the same story. So
Jesus.
when the Mexican consulate is like, wait a second, Circle K? Like, this is same guy, same storyline, same mysterious disappearance, and Circle K. Like, it's just within months apart. It's very, very, very fishy.
So obviously. Fishy. I would, at that exact moment, I'd be like, okay, we're done here. Like,
yeah,
pack it up.
Like, come back from fucking Iowa or wherever you are. Right. Idaho, yeah. Iowa, I don't remember. So when they hear this, Marcia hears this, and she learns that the Santos family also filed a missing persons report, but obviously also did not find Felipe. And according to a 2012 News Press article, the whole investigation felt really off to Felipe's family for obvious reasons. His wife questioned the quality of the investigation, citing the fact that she had never been contacted by investigators when they were investigating his disappearance.
Really?
His own wife. She's like, nobody ever asked me or like reached out to me, contacted me.
I'd be pissed.
I'd be pissed too.
Are you kidding me?
Who's the first person you talk to when someone goes missing? Their fucking spouse? Like, hello? It's so very, very sketchy, very fishy that, like, oh, we investigated it. And, like, obviously not. Yeah. Not very well.
No, you did not.
No. So by hearing the news about the similar tragedy that the Santos family were going through, the common link was obviously very, very clear. Steve Calkins, who had previously been a farmer from Illinois, was a 17-year veteran road deputy with a clean disciplinary record who had worked for the sheriff's office since 1987. He is married, has 3 children, and he had been recognized twice for, quote, saving lives, and has many letters of thanks in his file from Citizens Help since he joined the sheriff's office in 1987, and that's according to the sheriff himself, Don Hunter. Huh. These included helping to lift an overturned pickup off a man who was suffocating underneath, and in 1997 he helped give CPR to a 78-year-old man suffering a heart attack.
Wow.
But I guess, that doesn't clear you of being a horrible, murderous racist.
It only takes one really awful thing for us to our entire opinion to change.
And, like, the fact that this Santos thing wasn't even on his record, and, like, that had happened several months before.
Which makes me also wonder, were there other things on his record, you know?
What else hasn't come up? Yeah.
Go for it.
No, you're good. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. I've been interrupting you literally all day. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I love it.
I was just going to say...
the guidance.
I was just going to say... Oh, no, I fucking forgot. Shit. I don't remember. I really wish I could, but I don't remember.
That's okay. Maybe you'll come up with it. Internal investigators found that there was no clear reason Calkins would have targeted Santos, except I'm like, well, I find a clear reason, but okay.
Right.
But Sheriff Don Hunter has further commented that we have found no evidence of any foul play, but this is too strange, too odd for me to dismiss it offhand as mere coincidence. In my 25 years with the department, I haven't experienced anything like this. So at least the sheriff himself is like, listen, I don't know how to explain this one away. Like,
at least he's on top of it. Like,
at least he admits that something's up.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, he let him just move off to Iowa, but without any, like,
not a cute look at all.
Not a cute look, but whatever.
Not at all.
He's also gone on to say that this is also kind of problematic, but he's also gone on to say, the sheriff has, that both men had reasons to drop from sight, and there is some evidence that Santos may have headed to Mexico. And everyone's like, well, what is it? And the family's like, we don't have it.
Yeah, the wife is like, let me know why he went to fucking Mexico then.
Yeah, well, whenever you decide to give me a call, eventually, let me know.
That's a problematic statement there.
Like, both had reason to drop from...
Like, tell me what they were then.
Yeah, like what? Like what? And I guess the one for Terrance was the custody court hearing, but his mom was like, no, like, he was ready for that. He was prepared to pay it. He had always been prepared to pay it. This was not an issue of him trying to, like, escape payments. It's
wow.
So anyway, on August 30th, 2018, Marcia, who obviously has not given up on bringing about justice for her son, joined forces with none other than Tyler Perry, beloved filmmaker of Medea fame.
That guy is all over the place.
He is all over the place.
I don't know what is up with him, but
it's like the ubiquitous Tyler Perry.
I feel like he's this generation's Bill Murray, where it's
God, yeah.
It's just like, how did he show up in this narrative?
What is he? he owns a baseball team too? What is going on?
It blew my mind when I mean, this is nothing like this story, but when like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, when they like needed a place to stay, and like Tyler Perry just offered his house to them. It's like, what?
Listen,
what are you
why
doing?
fucking not? I just love when celebrities are kind of like, well, I can just do what I want now, I guess.
I'm here.
Like,
so
I'm just going to do my thing. You guys can take it or leave it. Yeah. So he gets involved, which I love because obviously this is like a social justice thing. And he helped Marsha file a wrongful death lawsuit against Steve Calkins.
Wow.
So Tyler Perry offered a $200,000 reward for critical tips in the investigation, which is just awesome. But unfortunately, a judge ruled that the evidence against Calkins was all circumstantial, and the arbitrator found the case didn't show Calkins in a good light, but ruled the plaintiff's arguments lacked evidence to show that his acts actually led to William's disappearance. So they're like, it doesn't look great, but like we can't prove it. And it's like, it's just so frustrating.
I'd be like, can you please look harder?
But like you can though, right? Like just squint a little more. Read it one more time.
We can sit here in silence and stare at each other until it's too uncomfortable for you to not go look a little harder.
That's a great tactic, actually. I learned that in journalism school. Just hold out on the discomfort until somebody breaks, and don't make it be you. Make it be the other person. Too bad I always broke it anyway, even though
I'd always break. You wouldn't even have a chance to hear the silence for me to break. I would just be like, okay, I'm talking now. Or,
okay,
hello.
I gave you a chance.
That's why I have a podcast. Poor Allison, her family, they're like really comfortable in silences, like, and I can't tolerate it. And like, even they've made it in, I don't know if it was because of me. I know Allison's listening to this right now. Allison, tell me when next time you see me.
Tell us the truth.
Her and her sister do this thing where like they intentionally don't say anything on the phone just to like ride out the silence. I've heard them a few times go like, they'll keep saying like, okay, like when they're about to hang up, they'll go like, okay, I love you. And then the other one goes, all right, I love you. And then it gets really like slower and slower and more silent, and eventually I have to be like, can the two of you hang up? I like can't talk. I can't do it.
The tension is too much. Oh my god,
I can't take it. And so I don't know if they do it because like I don't know if they do it when I'm not around. I have no idea, but like it makes me so uncomfortable. I was raised by a woman who's terrified of silence, and now I am. And the fact that I'm with someone who loves silence, I'm like, we are not meant to be in this.
Your job relies on you to be not silent all the time. Yeah, I mean.
Well, a lot of times people will be like, wow, you're a social butterfly. And it's like, no, I'm just scared of silence. I'll just talk until you like me.
Yeah, the social awkwardness like leads me to not shut up because I need to like make sure everybody's having a good time. Good times.
I don't know. I derailed you there. Sorry about that.
No, it's good. I love talking about all our issues. There's so many. We could do this forever. So they said basically he didn't cooperate. He lied to law enforcement and he got fired. But like we can't say that what he did led to the disappearance. And it was like you put him in your car, and he never showed up again. 2 people. Yeah. But okay. So the civil rights attorney representing the family of Terrance Williams was named Benjamin Crump, and he forgot to file a motion in time, so the court's decision could only be undone by a judge. So when he asked for a new trial, stating that the COVID-19 pandemic made hitting that deadline really difficult, and that's why it was delayed, which is like so frustrating, because I know the courts got like fizzucked by COVID.
Yes.
Big time. And so despite that, in February 2021, Judge Lauren Brody ruled that the arbitration was final and Calkins has been cleared of any wrongdoing no matter what. He can only be held accountable for the alleged homicides if there's an actual criminal charge, not a civil charge against him. So we can only hope that more evidence comes to light. But in thinking about the criminal charges against him, one theory that makes sense of what happened in this case is kind of where I guess a lot of people's minds went. I think mine definitely. Do you remember Neil Stonechild and the Starlight Tours episode that I did in Canada, where it was the Starlight Tours? Do you remember what those are?
No, but I remember asking you if it was the Hollywood bus tour. Like an asshole. Wasn't it? It's something about, is it Native people?
Yes.
People?
So it was the disappearance of First Nations 17-year-old Neil Stonechild in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And it led to the exposure of this unspoken, systemically racist practice amongst the police force, where police in Saskatoon would target a First Nations or Aboriginal man who was out drinking, coax them into the police car, mislead them saying they're going to drop them off at the drunk tank, but police would then drive them to the outskirts of Saskatoon, kick them out of the car, and let them try to walk their way home through freezing temperatures, which often ended up in death because of, fucking hypothermia, frostbite. Right. They would end up dying. And it was sort of like, I mean, it's murder, but it was like indirect murder, because they would be like, oh, we just dropped them off, but like you did it
full negligence. Like full well, that's what I said last time too. I was like, intentional negligence.
Yes, exactly. Like it's like an oxymoron, but it's like you knew what you were what it would lead to.
Like you wanted an out, but you did it so that you would have an out.
Yeah, it's like fully like you didn't hold the gun and shoot it, but like you set the perfect setup for somebody to be killed, and you did it intentionally and for very horrific reasons. So that's what a lot of people kind of look at this and go like, well, maybe he dropped them off in the Everglades and said like, find your fucking way home, bud.
Oof,
you know, I mean, we have proof that he was racist. We have 2 guys who were not white and who got in the back of his car, plenty of witnesses, and never were seen again. Both went to Circle K, which sounds like a euphemism now, and just never showed up again. And it's like,
I would check Circle K, man. I would dig that whole place up and be like, what is going on over here?
Circle K? What, like the basement?
I don't know, like that, the surrounding property. I'd be like,
well, maybe. That's the other thing is like the cameras, they went through every minute of footage. There's nothing. Nobody showed up there. So like he just said Circle K, and like, what did he mean? I don't know. Maybe he just made something up. So some people think like he dropped them off at like the Everglades or somewhere where they like wouldn't presumably find their way back or die of heat exposure. Who knows? Just horrible. But either way, Terrance and Felipe have still not been found. And after 5 years of being missing, they have both been declared dead. So Benjamin Crump, the civil rights attorney who represents the family of Terrance, has demanded Calkins come forward to speak the truth of what happened. He has commented, the last person to be with them that anybody witnessed was the then Collier County Sheriff's Deputy Calkins. These 2 young men disappeared off the face of the earth, and the last man to see them was this deputy. His stories were so inconsistent, so unbelievable, and even though he had all those inconsistencies, there were no charges brought. This lawsuit is going to formally say what people for the last 14 years have been informally saying, that he intentionally murdered Terrance Williams and Felipe Santos. And he continued at one point, my God, it's long overdue that he answers questions. Calkins sleeps every night in his bed peacefully, while Marcia and Terrance Williams' children haven't had a peaceful night of sleep in the last 14 years, and nor has the Santos family. So it's been over 17 fucking years. Marcia Williams is still searching for her son and Felipe. Oh
my God.
She has appeared on a ton of true crime programs. #disappeared, my personal favorite. And it's really obviously heartbreaking, but like really cool to just hear her side of the story when you're learning about this. And like there's something about like hearing directly from the people affected that makes it so much more powerful.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to be so convincing of like, hey, what the fuck was going on? Like the person who talked to you every single day multiple times doesn't know what happened to you.
And she's saying, and the police officer saying like, or the sheriff saying he had a reason to go, and she was like, trust me, like he didn't. You know, it's just so much more compelling to see somebody being like, no, trust me, I know him, I know my son, everybody knew him, he, you know. So this is sad, but in 2017, Marcia said, you know, my biggest wish, I wish I could win the lottery. If I didn't have to work and go on, I could spend all my time searching for my son. Whoa. Between work and searching for him when I can, I'm tired and I feel so guilty about not doing more.
Oh,
for 17 years now, she's been just searching.
Girl, you've done it. You've done enough.
Time.
Oh my gosh, you've done all you can.
And so, if you have any information, obviously regarding the disappearance of Terrance Williams, I always just urge people to look up a photo. You never know. You know, maybe you've seen him at the Pizza Hut. Who knows? Anything. Yeah. Like if you have any information, please contact the Collier County Sheriff's Office. You can call 1-800-780-8477. You can call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-780-TIPS. Or you can email a tip or call the Q Center 24-hour tip line at 910-232-1687. I know it's a lot of numbers, but We can put that in the show notes, or you can, Google Collier County Sheriff's Office and see who to contact. Mm-hmm. So at least we know that this asshole's not working there anymore. So at least they got rid of him. Enough. But it's like he's still just living the dream, fishing in Iowa, and like motherfuckers up having a great old time.
And who knows what? I mean, we don't know, but it could have not been the last time that happened for him too. If he's
you never know. It's not a safe man, I would argue, to be having run around the streets, but whatever. Well, so, just another fucking terrible story for you. You're welcome.
Yikes. Well, thank you again for that. Although I did appreciate the, I always like trying to figure it out. But for some reason, I always start these stories thinking I'm going to, like, what an asshole I am to think, like, I'm going to solve it. Like, in my head,
I think there's always that, I get that, though. There's always that desire of, like, maybe I can help, maybe I can fix it, maybe I can solve it.
And I never can.
But sometimes people do, you never fucking know. And that's why it's sometimes so compelling to do these, like, unsolved mysteries, because it's like somebody knows something that they don't necessarily even realize could be helpful,
Yeah.
So
that would be a nice goal to meet one day in my life, or in our life on the podcast, is like to be able to like help solve something.
Oh, I have written that in my in my manifestation journal many times. Solve a cold case. So I've been manifesting it. Don't worry.
if someone needs to know, like, I don't know, how many steaks can one person eat in a single day? Like, if that's the answer that they need to solve a crime, I would be the person who could help. I'd be like, I can tell you it's...
none of us doubt that for one moment. You'd be the first person to call.
It's the only thing I can think of on how I would be able to... I don't know any other information anyone else could probably know.
I think the only way, really, or realistically, a lot of times, is if you have some sort of connection. Like, you're like, oh, I've seen that guy. You know what I mean? Like, if it's just a fluke, like, I saw that guy working at Starbucks, or, something like that, where a sighting... I feel like that's the only real way, unless you kind of go out of your way to like really try and solve something. If you
got to solve a mystery, but it was like a random piece of information, like a random interest, what would you hope that mystery would, like, what do you think your topic would be that you could consider yourself an expert on?
Wait, what do you mean? Like, what would yours be? Steak?
It would be steak or naps. Yeah.
Oh.
Like, if you had to solve with a fun fact that only you would know, what would you? Oh my God! Your random fact would be the one that saves the day.
It would be like spelling or grammar, like something like really stupid.
Semantics.
Literally semantics, spelling, grammar. It would be something like really nitpicky, like. Actually, you're using that as an indirect, as a direct. I feel like I would be very, very nitpicky about that.
Fun fact: whenever I have to like write a text, or like if I felt like a serious text, I'll send it to Christine and be like, "Can you edit it for me?" Because I don't know what I'm doing, and you're better at this than I am.
It's just because I learned English as a second language, and so but still really young. So I think I learned it in like a different way from how most people do. I don't know.
Hey, if you had to solve a mystery with the fact that Skittles are vegan, like, you were going to be the one that saved the day before me. So.
I yell it so often. I hoped by now I would have solved something, but clearly not. Yeah, maybe someday.
maybe Back to the Future trivia for me. Oh, I don't know. I think you'd be pretty good at like maybe a Bob's Burger trivia.
Oh, that's fun.
There really should be like a murder mystery that's rooted in having to know fun trivia. Like, it's like a trivia game, but a murder mystery, and the only way you win is like you have to know random fucking knowledge to be able to even solve the story. I feel like that could be like
an escape room theme. I feel like they do those random themed escape rooms. We could do like an adult animated.
That would be pretty fun though. That's a lot of collaborating, but I would be into it.
It'd be a lot of work, but I would have a blast.
Anyway, catch you at our weird animated escape room where Skittles are vegan, and that's all you need to know.
I'll be trapped inside with Linda Belcher, and I will be drunk. Nope, not pregnant drunk, just drunk afterwards.
Drunk on Skittles.
Drunk on lime Skittles only.
I guess that's it. We'll see next week. What is today? What is this come out?
Hell if I know. It's early August. So we'll see you on the 15th of August.
Cool. We'll see you at some point in August at the very least.
Yay! And that's
why
we
drink.